Hi there. This is a video going over the updates to 360 Splat Pro 1.4. So as usual, we'll start where you would extract the file to when you're downloading it. One couple of things that's been added. I've now got a logs folder, and when you launch the debug.bat, it's useful to do this if you want to report any issues or problems that you're having. There's two logs that are really important, this one, and there's a console if you're doing any external workflows. And what I've added down the bottom under the advanced section, you can just click on this little button to expand that, is there's an open debug log folder. And so that'll jump straight to it if you're not, you don't want to dig down and find it using a shortcut. And this won't open anything currently because I haven't run, actually no, not a debug, the console. That shouldn't do anything right now because that is in the project, not where the software is. So when you're running something and if it errors and you want to find that log folder, you can click on that and it will go to that location. If you don't want to have that log generated, then you can just uncheck it here. So the main sort of focus of this is talking about the Fusion multi-camera workflows that I've added in, of which there are two of, and also I've done notifications and with sound, email and phone notifications, and I'll go through that, and a couple other little things I've added in. So to get to notifications, if you go to your project settings and scroll down, you'll notice this dialog is kind of scalable now. So you can put your own sounds in if you really wanted to. You could browse to them, or if you want to include them where the actual software is, they're under Resources, Themes, Sounds, and then the files there. You could overwrite these files if you don't want to browse to them if you really wanted to. But you have one for run complete, batch complete and error, so you can listen to them here. So a run complete is whenever just apply this. A run complete is when you do a run here. A batch is a little bit more involved because it can be running multiple steps or the whole workflow. So I tend to have run off just because you might be running a little test or just a quick extraction, and it maybe gets a little annoying. You can turn them all off, you don't have to have them on, and you just turn them off like this, or you can just turn a whole lot off there. So you can have the sound notifications turned off, but depending on what you set here is whether you'll get an email or a phone notification. So I'll leave it on with sound, and then the phone thing, there's a little bit of help here. You can click on this and this gives you a bit more information. Basically, there's a NTFY app that you can install onto your phone, and if you click this generate, it will generate a unique key. The main sort of issue with this is that they're public. So you want to generate like a code that's hard to guess, basically, and that's the subject that's being sent, you're kind of subscribing to on your phone. So I put a little generate thing here, basically put that in when you subscribe to a topic, and then you can just do a send test and it will pop up. You don't have to wait for a whole thing to finish. And the same thing if you want emails instead, you don't want to get the phone notification. I've done a few little presets for sort of major providers, and the same thing is you put your email in there, you put your password, and then you can do a send test as well. I find phone notification and sound are the ones I use the most. Email just because I don't want tons of spam going to it if you're running lots of workflows. Okay, so that's how you'd run the debug file. Logs are being saved in here. What I'll do is go to a quick sort of explanation of multicam and what you'll get. So in this particular one, I've got two captures and I've named them the heights that I did the captures at. And this is for 3 raw files. So if I drop this on, I've also added in a couple of guardrails to warn you against using the wrong workflow if you have something like multicam on. It'll just pop up and just say, you sure you want to do that? Because I don't think you should be using this workflow with it. So if I turn multicam on, what this is also loading up because I've just done an extraction on these as well. You'll see when I turn this on, these all highlight blue. And so what that's going to do is put it all to one location rather than thinking these are all separate captures that you want to process separately. So multicam and batch mode are not able to be run at the same time. You're basically doing one or the other. So you're still processing multiple videos, but they're either going to individual projects or they're going to go to a single project as a multicam project. So when you do an extract, and I kind of usually what I would do is I would maybe like turn masking off. Actually, let me show you. So say I pick this one, just a raw fisheye. It pops this up saying, hey, you got multicam on, but its workflows for single camera only. You can click OK and you could proceed, but it's only going to feed the first camera to Colmap to do the work. So there's two what I'm calling fusion workflows. And in this case, it's not a fusion workflow because it's all the same data type. But what you can do, there's a multicam raw. And so you would select that if you're processing multiple videos of raw data. Now, if you wanted to put in, say, a mobile phone or drone data, you would pick this one. If you've extracted them to the equirectangular images, then there's a workflow for that, which is the Equirect Perspective and Colmap Rig Fusion. So you basically look for the word fusion if you're mixing the data types, and you're looking for multicam raw. Now, if you were doing equirectangular, this will be able to work with it. Now, this is the wrong data type for it. So I've also included the tooltips when you're over this workflow. So say you've selected, we'll go to our multicam raw, which is what I'll be using here. And if I hover over it, it gives me the tooltip now to explain what this workflow is for. So hopefully that's a little bit clearer. And also the image type is here as well. So equirectangular, that's where you've stitched the footage. So a 2:1 ratio. Raw fisheye is generally once extracted into dual image streams for each lens. And then perspective is going to be multiple videos basically, or drone images you could also use. And you can do, I've just switched this over to be able to be used for multi-camera as well. So you give it a couple of videos and I'll show an example of that. Okay, so for this particular one, I'm going to pick multicam raw. And what I usually do is I would set these to a low number. And you'll see, let's actually set this one to 20. Actually, I'll do them all at 10 just to see if we can make this go a bit faster. And I'll run an extraction. So I'm just kind of taking you through the workflow because there's a few things you kind of need to do with raw that I don't necessarily recommend you to hit batch all. You will get something, but there's a couple of issues you'll get with the phone itself still being visible. So what I'll do is I'll turn off all the masking and this external workflow, and we'll just run extract. So clicking on each camera, you can see these are all set to 10. You could change that, you could have 50 if that's what you can extract from. So if I do a run here, actually, sorry, no. What I'm going to do is do a batch all, and that's going to run just the extraction. And while that's going, I'm going to clear all the masks. And just take you through the steps that are needed to set those up. So you see, it basically cascades through each camera and extracts them. And I do recommend not just throwing 1,000 images at it and expecting it to work. Definitely run tests because depending on the duration of your extraction from the video, and that's just the sound of when a batch all is finished. So I can turn off extract frames, and you'll notice That's for all of the cameras. Because they're linked with multi-camera, turning this off is for all of them, so you don't have to step through each one when you want to turn off that tab. So if we go to masking, what I would recommend you do is you go to your paint mask. Now I've got boost exposure on. You can turn it off if you want, but it's quite useful to pick out the camera. And then what I'll do is I just paint a mask for the camera. So I'm left clicking, dragging around, and the same here. And you can turn off the boost exposure and you can turn off the auto, just depending on what mode works best for you. Auto basically means when you switch back to the tab, it'll turn it back on, and this is just toggling it on and off. And then what I'll do is apply to all frames. And so if I open up the masks, you can open them from here. You'll see we have AI, combined, and paint. When we go to do alignment, only the combined one is being copied through. And you'll see if this goes orange, what it basically means is you've created some masks, which are our painted ones, but they're not being combined yet. So if you update it or change anything, then you want to make sure that you fix that. So what I tend to do is I'll quickly go and paint the camera masks. I found that the AI masking just doesn't really do a good job of getting them. And you'll also notice now I'm switching the detection method based on the data that's going in. So what I'm going to do here is just do apply all frames, and then I'll run this one as well. I'm being a little bit scrappy with these. You can, while you're doing these, you can right click and erase them as well. You don't have to switch to the eraser mode. It's just left and right clicking. And then we'll do apply to all frames. So the shape mask as well, you can change, maybe you want to make that bigger. It's basically just making sure that there's no feature detection in any area that's got a mask on it. And then for AI, I'm going to leave it as person. And so if I do batch all, it'll run through all three cameras. And it's also going to do a combine then. So if you do the painted mask first, that works quite well because you can just run batch all now. And you'll notice what I should have done was do a mask single to check that this is going to work okay. So I remember, because I've done this before, if I hit cancel on this, for person, oh, that's strange, I should be filling that in. I want to do backpack as well. And then if I just do a mask single to check it works, you'll see those two things are getting searched for there. Maybe let's try a rucksack. Yeah, you see that just got filled in there. So because I got multicam on, they're all going to have the same settings. Actually, sorry, no, masking is individual, so I can just Control C that, paste them in. And you'll notice this has gone orange, and basically that means I've deviated away from the workflow, not necessarily in a bad way, but it's just letting me know that I've changed it. If you wanted to save this because you're happy with these settings and you don't want to do anything else, you can just hit this little plus button, pops up a workflow name, and then that workflow will be down the bottom here after you've saved it. So I'm happy with these. I've got just the mask setting on, so I'm going to do a batch all again. And then it'll run through each image stream. So the first 50% is the left or front lens, and then the other 50% is the back lens. You can scrub through these if you want to kind of see how it's doing. But remember, it's only going to do one side. Sometimes the drawing of this isn't quite right. You could paint the shadow mask. Sometimes shadow works, sometimes it doesn't. And also if you're painting a mask and you want to step through, you can use the arrow keys to step through. And whenever you switch cameras, you'll notice this little blue bar starts loading, and that's basically caching the preview. Because that makes it just a lot more faster to either scrub or step through what's going on. And you'll see it's moved on to stream low. If you move the mouse over here, over each of these, it'll hover over which name is in there. So I've got mid, then low, then high. And after it's finished, if I go to this one, you'll notice, let's have a look. If I go to my mask folder, you'll see I've got each of the 3 camera names in there. I think it will go through everything and then it will do the combining stage. You see here it's said it's combining, and then it goes blue once that's finished. So if I go to stream high, so that's finished that, and then you'll see we've got the circular shape mask and the painted mask and the AI mask all combined together. So then you could turn on this external setting. You can do run all or batch all here. It's only one, it's basically going to feed everything in, but I'll run this now to kind of show you what it actually does on disk as well, so you have an understanding of that. So I'll do batch all, and then you can do open folder or just go to the external folder. Oops, let's go into stream, and then we've got external, and you'll see it names the folder based off what it's doing. You see we've got Colmap Fisheye, that's the output folder. So you could rename that if you wanted to do different settings or something like that, if you wanted to get a little more sophisticated. So the first thing it does is prepare the image lists. So it creates these named lists, and that's basically what it's going to feed to Colmap. And you can see it's doing the back and the front for each of the 3 cameras. Then it does a staging of the masks. So all the masks get copied over. And the reason for that is you could change masks, but then be out of sync with what you put into Colmap. So every time you run this, it copies them into the staging area to make sure those are the masks that are used. If you accidentally delete anything, you shouldn't break anything within your Colmap folder. And you can see, it's probably because I click on there. Oh, because I had masking on, I didn't turn that off. It's running the masking stage when I did batch all. If I'd done run all, then it would have only done this particular tab. But you'll get a green queue name as it's working its way through everything. And you can go down to here as well and watch the console. So that's going to keep doing entries into there. And this is what I meant about going to the console log folder. So we click on this. This is the batch log, but you'll see it's saved into the analysis folder of the stream. And also when you turn multicam off, if you've got like high, low, or anything like that, it trims all of those names off. Once you start running the project, this is then locked because it needs the name to stay consistent. If you change this halfway through, it's going to break things. So you could save the workflow, do new, drop the files back on and do a different name, and then you're outputting to a different folder if you wanted to compare different items. But this is where like the sharpness logs and the batch logs are. So if I open this, okay, that's the first one I'd run. And then the session is the one that's actually running now. It's this one. And then this is all of the Colmap information going in there. And this one is the useful one to find out, because let me just refresh that. Oh, actually, yeah, I think it does. It has to finish that workflow before it writes it to it. So you can see now it's going through the feature detection. So I'll do all the extraction for those. You can turn each step off if you wanted to only run selected. So say if you want to include something like the brush, you could turn that on and then it will run this stage at the end as well. And you'll see, go up, let's just open the folder. So this is still going to run. These can take a while, which is why the notifications are really useful now, because it will just ping your phone when it's finished. And I've probably only extracted a few frames here. They're kind of pretty close, so it should get us an alignment. But what I'll do is show you the result of this. That's what I prepared earlier. And this is running all of the frames with the masking on as well. I'm just doing this in post-shot for speed. Unfortunately, I don't have a post-shot license, but it's very quick to give you the results. And so you can see these are the 3 separate videos that I did the heights on. And ideally, I would say you want to almost overlap these. I mean, there's a lot of features that are easy to detect here, and you can see just where it's masked me out. So sometimes, depending on where your angle is at, that masking, you need to do extra coverage for that to make sure that you're getting enough visibilities that you don't get these discernible masks like that, because essentially it's punching a hole into your splat, because it's saying don't include this in anything. Now obviously it's you walking, but you have to get it from another angle, so maybe from this one I would have looped back over the path and done one in front of me and one in back, and then that would have given me enough sort of overlap between everything to avoid that particular masking. Practice makes perfect, and these are just quick tests for this kind of multicam method, but I was fairly happy with what I got on this one. It's quite nice reflections. This was moving water as well, but it did a fairly good job of what we got in it. So that's what you'll get with multicam results. Now let's get to the Fusion stuff. So I'll just close these down. So on this particular one, I've got raw 3 heights done with along the 3-meter Insta selfie stick, and then I did like 3 videos as well. And so what I'll do while that's running, I would not recommend you do this. I'm just doing this to show you the project. I really wouldn't run 2 at the same time. It's possible, but it may break across the streams basically. So what I'll do is this is the Fusion workflow, and I've actually done the phone data and the 360 data separately. So if I load up the phone data, and this is the post-shot result. So this is the swing area, and you can see I've just walked around with the phone, and I did a little sort of closer capture around the base of the swing. It's a little bit windy, so you can see this has moved a bit during while I was capturing it, but I didn't really get much there, and everything else in the background is purely incidental to the video. So you can see there's whole areas that are missing because I was just focusing on getting the footage here. So let's just close this, and then what I'm going to do is just drop the project on. And I'll show you in the external folder, same fisheye folder. You'll get the same masks getting copied, but you can see, I'll make this a little bit wider. I've got the 3 videos just from a phone at 4K at sort of different heights and angles, and then I did like one that was a lot more close up. And what I probably should have done is painted out this shadow because it's giving me very harsh results, but you can see I did a little orbit around that. Probably should have done a lower angle, but this was really just a test to see how this worked. I did them in a different order to see if that broke anything. And then what you do is you just add all the files on, you do the same sort of masking process you normally do, and then there are 2 Fusion ones. So the same if I had exported these as equirectangular images or videos and then added in drone footage, and I can show you an example where I've done that. And then also we have this one, which is our multicam raw and perspective. So that's the let me know this one's finished. And the other thing you get is an alignment report as well, just to go back to the raw one. On the Fusion, it was very tricky to get this to work, and I ended up with kind of 2 slightly different methodologies for the equirectangular or the raw footage. On the essentially for the raw footage, I'm doing the spherical alignment, then doing a cubic export, then doing a perspective alignment and bringing those 2 sets of data together, because then they're both perspective. you can't, it was very difficult to get fisheye data and perspective data to align. So what I end up doing is there is 2 alignment reports. So what I'll do is I'm just going to clear this because I think I've subsequently done it, and then just load this up. Yeah, so you see I've got this fusion alignment report. I might be able to run this. This may break because I've done this at slightly different times during the development. Let's just try it and see what we get. So I'm just doing run selected there. And if I go back up to here, you'll see you get this fusion alignment report. So what I do is I do the alignment on the spherical data first, compile all of that, all the masks, and then kind of get to this reconstruct stage, select the best model because sometimes you get multiple models being created. I run an alignment report of the raw data, and that will be just this alignment report here, which is all of this. And then there's the fusion alignment report, which is this one, which is basically just showing you, here's your 360 data, and then here's everything else. And then this aligned all the files, gave me a grade C, which is all right in this, because obviously the different data types may not give you the best, but it sort of shows you, you can basically compare the two and see if your 360 data was okay going into the fusion, because then it gives you a chance to go, well, was my alignment report here, okay, I got a grade B, it was good, but my reprojection error is 1.42, and you can see it's just a good way to know where did the error come from. Was it the additional data I added, or was it from the 360 data? So this will then export this sort of fusion temp rig images, which is all of this information, because basically I'm writing out rigs for the cubic data so they don't drift apart when we do the alignment. So I do this rig section here, write out the fusion report, and then we build the scene with the cubic faces and the perspective data, and then what you get basically, so this fusion temp folder can get deleted, but you'll be used to having this cube map folder, so then you get the usual images, and so that's the cubic data, and then at the bottom, I keep going all the way down, you'll get the camera data here as well. And the same thing, there was nobody really walking around, so the masks are only on the 360 data. But if I just bring up post shot, you can do the usual, drop this in, open up your masks, and drop those in there. And then you leave this as remove occluders, and then you can run that. Now, you do have this kind of issue where the col map alignment doesn't really know where top and bottom is. I was thinking about maybe trying to reload that into the point cloud viewer and then allow someone to create a triangle for the ground base. Let me know on the Discord group if you'd like that kind of feature. It could be tricky. I've still got to figure that out. But you can, just for post shot, F2, F3 and F4 switch to these views where you can rotate. So if you select the radiance field, you can rotate this, set it around, and then F4 is the one you want to set to this horizontal. And then if you press F1 again, then you're kind of back to the right alignment. And you can see another useful tip I found, if you double click, that's your rotation point as well. I click there, it's going to rotate around that, a bit like how Reality Scan does. Every day is a school day, as they say. So you can see I've got the cubic files, but then also the perspective cameras as well. Now, because this was raw data, you'll see we get 2 sets of cubic files because it's aligning each lens separately. So in classic Blue Peter style, I will go just to my root folder, and also I did, because you've got the perspective data, you want to use the gut feature of lift field if you're using that, because that's going to understort the images for that training. Don't know if post-shot does that. The result was pretty good. So you can see I get quite nice details, better details than I got on just the 360 alone. But from the perspective data, you see I got everything else within the scene. So it's quite a nice way to add additional details to like your target object, but use the 360 camera to create the full environment behind. But it isn't as important as your hero object or whatever it might be. So I think this fusion workflow is really good for doing that. One thing to show you with the drone test that I did for some data I'd had before is what I'll do is just open up, let me close post shot. And so this is as I was developing this test. So here's all of the, and this is with equirectangular images. I'd have to essentially process the same shoot both ways between raw and equirectangular, and then add the additional photography to see which worked best. But in this particular case, if I load up the project, you can see essentially I haven't graded this together. So if I go to like the drone JPEGs, you can see the colors. That's probably the white balance was just set differently, but this building over here and this one are not quite the same colors. So there's just a word of warning is you want to prep your data well, because you see it's really apparent here. As I'm low down, this is the grade of the 360 camera, and as I come up, you'll see it sort of transitions into the grade of the drone footage, but you then end up with this kind of very distinctive line between the two. So really you want to do a match grade as close as you can on your data that you're inputting, and that can be difficult if you're in and out of sunlight, if there's clouds and stuff like that. It can change quite dramatically, but be aware that will cause some issues like this. I did find in post shots there's this photometric compensation, which I think is more for exposure, but it did help a bit in terms of it not being so hugely apparent. But overall, the left side is where all the drone was pointing, and the right side is where the 360 camera is. So you can see there's quite a big difference, and obviously it's going to be better here, but for the time you get a much better capture on what you're trying to get compared to a load of missing data here, which the drone was only looking at this building, not what was going over here. So I would be really interested to see what you guys come up with for your captures on how best. Other thing, if you're using a drone, is to make sure you shoot overlap in terms of position. So you want to start at a sort of head height angle. So you can see I've got some cameras here, and I rise up to get the higher angles that the 360 camera can't get. So yeah, that's a kind of summary of how the Fusion workflows work. And another quick mention, I did add a disable AI mask generation here. A user wanted that because they only wanted the shape masks. So if we go back to our raw data, sometimes if you're shooting from a 360 drone, there isn't anything to mask because you're not in the image like you are on a selfie stick. So what they wanted was to add in the shape masks, but to not have the AI masking. So now under the AI section, you can check this, and you'll see, if I actually go here, we can see this in action. If I go to combined, you see I've got the AI masking in there. If I turn it off and then run combine, essentially all that's doing is putting in the shape mask, and you can see all of these masks have gone. So combine is also a kind of build for the shape masks. So say you in shapes you wanted to add in just on the top and bring that down or something like that. If you did combine here, you'll see you'll get the shape masks added in there. So essentially that's like a render the shape masks button as well. I think if you hover over it, you'll get a little tooltip on there. So those are the major additions to 1.4. Please join the Discord if you'd like to post any bugs or have any new features you wish to add. But other than that, I hope you enjoy the new version, and leave a review on Gumroad if you're enjoying the tool. It's really helpful to support it, and add any comments either on this video or jump onto the Discord if you're a user. All right, thanks very much.